The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
What's up, Grizz Nation? Welcome back to the show. This is Hoop Ball Grizz. Before we get into tonight's game, if you were on Twitter tonight, you saw the big announcement. If you were not, we would like to take a second right here in the beginning and welcome Isaac. Isaac is officially a member of Team Hoop Ball, and he and I will be hosting the show moving forward.
Yeah, man, I'm excited, man. First off, I want to thank you for welcoming me to the Hoop Ball family, man. I'm been feeling it a little bit, been having fun, man. Enjoyed doing it, and happy to be on officially, man. So it should be fun. Hopefully, man, we can expand this thing even more, man, and again have some fun with it. And I'm excited.
Me too, man. Looking forward to it. That's we have only talked over Twitter and Skype. I'm looking forward to, after all of the vaccinations and everything. Hopefully next season we can actually be at a game together or something, man. This is ready to actually meet you for sure. So
yeah, definitely. With all the craziness going on, man, COVID and all that, man. Hopefully we can get the thing in the rear view sooner rather than later, man. Because I'm ready to get back to normal, man. Get back down to the forum, man. Enjoy some Grizzlies basketball, man. And again, man, it should be fun, man. Can't wait to meet you in person.
For sure. So let's move on to the game. Final score of the game, 111-107. The Grizzlies just did not have it in them tonight to bring this one home. They fought. There was a lot of back and forth. They didn't get their first lead until right at the end of the third quarter. The Jazz just had too much for them. The 3-point deficit is really what came back to get the Grizz. Isaac and I were talking about it just before we started recording. A 33-point difference. The Jazz made 16, the Grizzlies made 5, and that's a huge mountain to overcome. And the Grizzlies nearly done it, man. Obviously Donovan Mitchell was out for the Jazz, so that's a nod in favor of the Grizz. But the Jazz are now 3-0. when he misses games this season. So, it's not like there's obviously when you lose a guy like Mitchell, when he's not on the floor, you're missing something. But they've got a veteran player in Joe Ingles that can just step in and contribute. And, Mike Conley had a great game tonight. Jordan Clarkson was lighting it up. Bojan started off. I didn't think he was going to miss in the first quarter. He was lights out. So it was a good night for the Jazz. I'm sure that the Jazz fans and the Jazz organization in general is happy to come away with this victory. It's a hard-fought game for both teams.
Yeah, and you speak of Jordan Clarkson. I mean, he's really taken another step since he's been with the Jazz. It has to be your favorite for Sixth Man of the Year right now. I mean, he's just playing fantastic basketball. He had another big game tonight. Grizzlies had a hard time dealing with him, but I think one thing that you take out of the night, you hate to waste a Ja game like this, man. 36 points for Ja, 7 assists. Just kind of took over in that second half and just looked like a superstar player. He tried to carry him there. Missed 2 big free throws in the end that crucial, man. If he had knocked both of those down, maybe we'd be talking about a different result. Maybe you could have saw overtime there, but a tremendous second half for him. And one thing we've talked about all year is Ja getting calls, and he see 12 or 15 free throws for Ja tonight. So finally gave him some calls tonight. I think that's good to see, and you love to see when he's aggressive like this. I think you just wish he was aggressive like this every night from the get-go. It seems like at times he kind of picks his spots when the team is down. Sometimes in the second half he'll take over. You just wish he could do that early in the game, and they might win a lot more of these games if he's aggressive like that in the first half.
Yeah, it seems like the switch is definitely there. And, you can watch him and see him turn it off and on. But, there's definitely times that I would rather, like you said, I'd rather see him turn that on early and, get a little momentum, get a lead and a little confidence. And then, then maybe kind of save up, store some energy for the end, because you got to close the game. That's the hardest part of it's closing it. But, it just, even with the 36 and 7 from him tonight, it just couldn't get there. The big thing, whenever I was looking through the box score that jumped out at me, Desmond Bane was 3 for 10 from the field. But my biggest problem, I'm fine with him taking 10 shots, and I understand that he's not going to shoot 40, 50, 60% all of the time. But of those 10 shots, only one of them was a 3, and I will still I will die on this hill that he's arguably the best 3-point shooter on this team, and he just isn't shooting threes.
Yeah, that kind of stood out to me as well when I was looking at the box score before we came on here, because I didn't even realize during the game that he had only shot one. I was like, it's 0 for 1 from 3. I was like, that's not good, especially, I mean, you see a guy play 33 minutes, and he's the best, like you said, best three-pointer shooter on his team and only shoot one three-pointer. You just got to scratch your head at that and wonder, I mean, what's going on there? Why is he not shooting the ball more? And another thing tonight is they had Bane on the floor late, and you just kind of wondering why Melton wasn't in there. And it's kind of what I was asking myself the entire fourth quarter. You saw Bane in there a lot, and Melton wasn't in there down the stretch, and I think that's a mistake. I don't know. You kind of look at, I mean, you got guys out. You had Winslow out tonight. You got BC out tonight as well as Grayson, and you got to look at this, and Melton still only gets 22 minutes. Bane gets 33, and I'm a big fan of Bane, but I think on this team, I think Melton is the best two-guard on this team, and I think he should be getting major minutes. And you see your wing rotation kind of depleted here tonight. He still only gets 22 minutes. That was just kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, and Melton struggled a little bit tonight. He was only 2 for 6 from the field, but outside of that, the defense, man, he is just, if you get a switch, if there's Conley and Clarkson out there at the same time, and Dylan is guarding one of those guys, and you have Melton out there, that you got 2 capable defenders on both of those guys that are going to make it tough. And it's Bane is still growing. He's a rookie. Get that, understand it. Not bashing him in any way, because I'm a supporter of him as well. But yeah, there was, heading into this game, I'm like, man, Melton should definitely get over 30 minutes. And then here we are, even with the with the depleted rotation, 22 minutes, and it's just not enough. Now I'm done making excuses for why this is happening. Jenkins and this coaching staff, they watch film and they see what what Melton is bringing to the table, and yet we're still having this conversation over halfway through the year of why is Melton not getting more minutes, and that there's no excuse for it at this point. There's none, and I hope at the end of the day that it boils down to, developmental season, but I still think that is a trash excuse.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you see a night where, again, I'm a big fan of Bane, but Bane wasn't shooting the ball as well. 3 of 10 from the floor. He only took 1 3, and then when you just kind of look at the defense aspect of it, if they're both struggling, you think you'd rather have the better defender out there, especially in a close game. And for some reason, man, Jenkins has just shown that Melton is not going to be his guy. I don't know what it is. It's weird because he's the guy that they paid, and you think, okay, well, they paid him to keep him here. You think he would be higher in the pecking order, but for some reason, that's just not what we've seen. And I don't know what it is. And I think tonight proves that it's just not going to be that. Even when you have a depleted rotation, he's still playing 22 minutes. And I think one thing tonight is I think they only got 13 points off the bench, which is just not going to get it done. I know that the rotation is depleted, but you got to have to get more than 13 points off the bench if you're going to win it again. I mean, we look at all these things, and they still only lost this game by 4 points. So, I mean, that kind of shows you how well they played. And again, there's a lot of job in the second half to just kind of put this team on his shoulders and kind of willed them back into this game and took a lead going into the third quarter. Man, I thought that they were going to be able to pull it out. Man, I predicted a 3-game winning streak, but it was not to be. But they got a game coming up on Friday against the Timberwolves. It's a game that you think you should definitely win on the home floor.
Yeah. I feel like that's a trap game, though. They're going to be. I'm hoping that they're motivated after this game. That they were right there. This game was a winnable game, and it just couldn't do it. But Minnesota can easily be a trap because while their record doesn't show it, they're not as bad as their record shows. They've got some talent on that team, and D'Angelo Russell's not playing right now, so he's taken out. But still, with Rubio and Towns and Anthony Edwards, he is actually playing at a higher level than I expected him to this year, and good on him. But Beasley is back from his suspension. So, it's not a bad team. They could easily lose this game if they go into it with the wrong mindset. So I hope that they go in ready and willing rather than hesitant. And, not locked in, because I would hate to see them games like this moving forward. They have to win those games, and that this is one. Not that it's a huge game for them, but you don't want to fall 2 games under 500, and you definitely don't want to lose to a team that is. I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're tanking at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on Monday night with the Rockets game. Games like this, when you look down the schedule, there's not a lot of opportunities that you look and say, well, this is a game that they should win for sure. Not a lot of opportunities like that left on the schedule. So when you have these type of games, again, if they're going to be a playoff team, a play-in team, they got to win these games. It took them a while to get it together on Monday in Houston, but they finally pulled away and won that game. Again, on Friday, that's another one that I feel like they have to get if they're going to be in a position to be in the top 10 at the end of this thing. And because right behind there, you got a tough 4-game East Coast road trip, so you don't want to be on a losing streak going on that trip, because that's going to be a tough one. I mean, you just got to look at those 4 games. You want to find a way to go 2-2, but that's definitely nowhere near guaranteed. I mean, you played 4 really good teams on a road trip, starting with Philadelphia on Sunday. I think you got the Knicks. You got on that trip. I know the Knicks, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and who else? Is it Milwaukee?
No, Milwaukee's the next weekend. So you got
the next week.
Yeah, you go Philly on Sunday, Miami on Tuesday.
Yeah, Miami. That's
Miami, Atlanta back to back, the Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they end at the Knicks and then come back home. You know, like this next stretch, this whole next month is a pretty tough stretch for them, because that's a
7-game road trip.
You got the big road trip, and you're next. You got 4. Man, every game for the rest of this month, except for the Magic on the 30th of April. I'm saying this month, it's still March, but in April, every game that they play is against a team that is contending for a playoff spot, with the exception of the Magic. And that's it's not an easy road. It's going to be very, very tough on these guys. You just gotta, man. They have guys that can knock down a 3. I cannot understand why they're struggling to shoot the 3 so much. You've got a playmaker in Ja Morant, and you have guys like Bane and Brooks, and Kyle's been shooting the 3 better this year. You have guys that can knock it down, and yet it seems like game in and game out, we're talking about them not being able to knock down 3s. And Brevin or Pete on the broadcast tonight talked about the Grizzlies are in the bottom 3 in the league in 3-point differential. And, games like tonight are a big reason why.
Yeah, and you look at this roster, like you said, that shouldn't be the case. I mean, you look at it, like you said, I mean, even Melton is shooting over 40% from 3 now. You got Grayson Allen, who's shooting 40% from 3. Kyle's been shooting 3s better. Dylan Brooks is a solid 3-point shooter. I mean, they have guys on this team that are capable of knocking down 3s. And for some reason, I mean, they just on a night in, night out basis. I mean, they have games where they get hot and they make a lot of 3s, but on the average night, they just don't make 3s. And I don't understand that. They should be better from the 3-point line with the talent that they have on this roster. That is a weird thing to me. I don't understand that either. But talk about the road trip. We got the 4-game road trip and the East Coast road trip. Then you come back home for a couple. Then you go back on the road for 7. I mean, that road trip is brutal. I mean, you got 2 at Denver. At altitude mixed in there in that 7 games. It's going to be tough, man. Hopefully we can get everybody back healthy. I don't think the Grayson Allen injury, I figured he missed a few games. I just know how the Grizzlies kind of handle these things. I think he'll be back by then. Justice Winslow, I'm kind of surprised. I thought that was probably a one-off or 1-game thing, but now he's missed a couple of games. Hopefully that's not something serious. Hopefully we'll see him on Friday night. Who knows? But they're going to need all hands on deck for this road trip. They're going to need that depth. We've kind of talked all year about how deep this team is. It's going to be tested in this 7-game road trip, because I mean they're not going to get a break, man, in this thing. So they got to be ready to go and try to get keep the legs, because it's going to be tough. A lot of travel in there, a lot of tough games. I mean, you got Denver twice in there. You got a back-to-back with Portland. I mean, it's just brutal. The schedule makers didn't do Grizzlies any favors in this second half of the season. But it's a young team. These a lot of young guys, so hopefully they can find a way to win some games, man. I think if you could find a way to go something like 3-4 maybe on that trip, I think you'd have to take that.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Got some tough games, Nuggets, Clippers, Portland, just, brutal stretch there. It's you're talking about the depth and the youth and Killian Tilly. He didn't, he only played about 16 minutes tonight, but he impressed me with some of the stuff that he done. There was a hustle play,
yeah, man.
Where he
Love
got
it.
after the ball and forced a 24-second violation there. And I'm like, man, that's winning plays. You need to make plays like that to beat these teams. And he was out there going after it. And for a guy that's had, an injury history, he plays with no fear. He's not scared to get on the floor. And I know that I've said this before, but I think that may be, out of everything, like, Bain and Tillman, everything that Kleiman has done up to this point, the undrafted signing of Killian Tilly may work out to be one of the best moves that he's made.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Killian Tilly is going to be a keeper for this team. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys who kind of sign him undrafted. They might hang around a couple of years, go back with the hustle back and forth, and end up washing out in 2 years like you see usually. I think Killian Tilly is actually going to end up being a player for this team. I'm not so sure about McDermott, but I do think Tilly, because Tilly would have been drafted if it wasn't for the injuries that he's had. I think that's kind of what held him from being undrafted, because, he was a really good player when he was healthy at Gonzaga. So I think he's going to be a player, and I think you kind of saw some flashes from that tonight. And he's a guy that at his size can knock down threes. And I think that's something that he'll continue to develop. And I think Tilly's going to be here for a while. I think he's going to end up being in the rotation one day. So I think that's another great move by Keen Kleiman, as we call him, in his front offices. They've hit home runs after home runs. You just look at the last two drafts. You get Ja and make the trade and get Brandon Clark in the 20s, I think, was a steal. And you kind of saw the same thing, getting traded with Bain at the end of the first round, and also getting Tillman in the second round. They've just done such a tremendous job in drafting. So I think that's one thing with this team we don't have to worry about as far as them, because I think they've proven that they know how to draft some players, man. And that's something that we haven't had here in the past. The old regime, that was the exact opposite of what we thought of them. So it's good to have that now.
Yeah, it is. It's I guess best way to say it is good to have that, like you're comfortable. You're not worried about what they're going to do, as opposed to, what we had prior to Kleiman. You never know what kind of crazy,
complete different mentality.
Just, man, sitting on the edge of your seat, like what kind of crazy, what's going to happen here. And so I want to actually bounce back a little bit to the 3-point shooting. And I want to get do you think that the offensive scheme has anything to do with the fact that they're not making threes at a higher rate?
I think when you look at that, it's tough, because again, I'm not sure why they're not making threes, but I think that probably does have some effect on it. If you're not knocking down shots, you just kind of have to look at something different. But I think they, for some reason, still, when you got a guy like Bain, there's no way that he should play 33 minutes and only take 1 3. Like, that's insane to me. Like, I couldn't believe that when I saw it. I didn't notice it during the game, and I looked at the box score and I was like, he played 33 minutes and only took 1 3. He just got to get more shots up than that. You got other guys. You got Kyle taking 4, even though he's been better. Even Ja is not a guy that shoots threes. He got up 4 tonight. There's no reason why Bain should have taught 5 or 6 threes in 33 minutes tonight. Even if he's struggling, I want him to shoot the basketball, because that's what he's out there for. Even though he's proven that he can do other things, which I think is fantastic. But where he's gonna butter his bread is knocking down 3-pointers, and again 1 3 tonight. I just don't get that. And they, you just look on this box score. Everybody, like pretty much anybody that shot threes shot more threes than Bain, and he's the best 3-point shooter on the team, which is weird. Brooks only shot 3 tonight, so I don't know.
He had an efficient night too. That he was 47%, and that's this is not a Bain bashing session by any.
No,
he still
not
contributed. 7 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal. So like he was effective in other ways. He didn't shoot the ball well tonight, but it's not, again, it's not the 3 for 10 that worries me. If he was 3 for 10 with 6 or 7 attempts from 3, Okay.
You can
I'm
live with
fine
that.
with that.
Yeah.
But, 3 for 10 and you only shot the ball from 3 one time, you know, I'm not going to give that much credit to Utah's defense and say, well, they were running him off of the line. He just didn't take and I can't say that he had that many opportunities. Like looking back, trying to remember the game, out of those 10 shots, he didn't have opportunities every time to put up a three. But I would think with somebody with his talent and what he brings to the table,
Yeah, you
that
got to
by
find a way to get him those
design,
shots. Yeah.
you would run plays in order for him to be shooting more threes. And so that's JV started off slow tonight. He was 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 to start the game. He ends up with another double-double, 5 assists from the big man there. That there was, Kyle had a good line, 18, 11, and 3 blocks. Dylan, 17 points, 3 steals on 8 for 17 shooting. There's not a lot of you can't really look at this game and look at the box score and be like, man, they just absolutely stunk it up anywhere other than 3-point shooting. That was it. And it wasn't, 5 for 18, 27%. That's kind of it, that I don't have the percentage here. I can pull it up, but on the year, they haven't been knocking them down, but sometimes in a loss, like I get on here and I'm like, man, it just ticked off because there wasn't enough effort or they didn't make changes. And I tweeted out during the game, there was one point when they had Tilly and McDermott and like the Jazz went on a 9-0 run. They were just getting torched. And Jenkins called a timeout. And I'm like, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he probably doesn't make any lineup changes coming out of this timeout. And he did.
He did, yeah.
And it surprised me because in the past, I've seen him call a timeout and not make those lineup changes. And so, that's growth. That's a little win there, I guess.
Yeah, that same stretch, I was like, what are we doing, man? When you got Tilly and McDermott on the floor, like I said, I love Tilly, but, I mean, you're in a high-level game. That's kind of not not at the same time. I mean, you don't want to have right now, you don't want to have both of those guys on the floor. But you're right, man. You look at this box score. I mean, the Grizzlies outshoot them. Grizzlies hit 42 shots, 42 of 90 for 46.7%. Jazz 38 of 89 for 42%. Only one more free throw made for the Jazz. Really close there. Grizzlies 18 and 23. Jazz 19 and 25. Rebounds tied. And if you had told me going to this game that the Grizzlies tied Utah in rebounds, Utah's one of the best rebounding teams in the league, I would have said the Grizzlies probably win this game. So they tied in rebounds. Both had 11 offensive. Grizzlies with more assists, tied in steals. Utah with 15 turnovers. Grizzlies with 11. Grizzlies with for 42, 60 points in the paint to Utah's 42. Grizzlies 14 fast break points, Utah 11. I mean, you just go down the line. I mean, Grizzlies played better than them if you just kind of look about the stats.
Yeah, they did. That's what's tough. Crazy, man. It's so, like they played well tonight, but just that a mountain, just a mountain of threes got to them, and they're shooting. I pulled up the stats here. The Grizzlies are shooting under 34.7% as a team from 3 this year, and so maybe it's personnel, maybe it is, maybe it's the guys that we have, but I don't buy into that, and that's. There's so many moving parts whenever it comes to an NBA game. It's hard to say this is exactly what it is or what it's not. But I feel like there should be more design. Every team in the league is shooting the 3. Like that's just analytics. Everything's pointing to it. When you go into a game with one of the league leaders and 3-point makes, and the Jazz are among the league leaders, you know that you have to make threes. Why would you not game plan that? And, I'm not in that locker room. I don't know what they're going over or anything like that, but it just seems like that seems like common sense to me. This team is going to make a lot of threes. And even though the Grizzlies are really great at scoring in the paint, for every 3, you have to make 2 twos to make up for it. And it's tough, really, really tough to do that.
It really is. And I mean, I think teams have kind of saw that the Grizzlies struggle at times to guard 3-point line. So I think teams even tee off a little bit even more than normal that they would against some other teams than the Grizzlies. I mean, teams really come in getting threes up. I mean, you just got to see that from the onset in games. And again, like you said, you can score 70 points in the paint, but for every, like you said, three that another team makes, you have to make 4 points to try to make that up. So it's tough to overcome because you got to score a lot in the paint to make up for all those threes. And again, 33-point difference tonight. I mean, and to lose a game by 4, that's tough. You just think you make a couple more 3-pointers and you win this game. So it's kind of tough to see. In the past, I understand we just didn't have the personnel in years past to kind of shoot threes, and you kind of had to play that grit and grind style, try to slow it down and win that way. But I don't feel like that's the case with this team. I feel like they're capable 3-point shooters on this team. I just think they just got to find a way to get better looks and more threes up, and it just doesn't seem like they scheme for that. They're still with the floater game. They like to score in the paint, and that's fine. But when you're playing against really good teams, I think that's one reason why they're close in these games, but they can't pull them out is because these teams hit all these threes, and it's just always a big differential there, and they have losing these close games. And I think if they could find ways to knock down threes, they could win some of these games because they're usually in them, and they usually end up losing these games in the end by a few points. And you just look at the stat sheet, and that's obviously the reason why.
Yeah. Yep. 100% agree, man. We still got a little ways to go in this season, obviously, and you make changes during the season. I don't know if this is something that they get fixed this year or if we go into next season looking at it. The one thing, with Justice is not over his career not been a great 3-point shooter, and he's a guy that I would think would be a part of the rotation moving forward in the future based off of what he's brought to the table so far on the defensive end. There's pieces that they have that don't fit the 3-point shooting mold, but you have plenty of other guys that you can do, and you've got the draft coming up and the off season. There's no telling what kind of moving parts you're going to see and who you're going to see come in or go out to maybe make this improve. And we're not going to see any more moves this season from now until the end of the season. So we just have to work with what we've got. But I'm not convinced that this team is this bad at 3-point shooting, even though the numbers say that they are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, you got getting 2 guys shooting north of 40%. I mean, there's just no reason to be this bad as a team. I know Ja's not a 3-point shooter, but when you have a point guard like Ja, you would think that would even increase your look from 3, and it just hasn't been the case so far this season. And again, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of change the rest of this season. But I mean, you get a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr. in. I mean, he's a guy that will definitely put it up, and I think he will add to that. And I think with him being in there, that will create a lot of better looks for guys. But again, I mean, it doesn't look like he's going to be back until the end of the season. So it's and that whole thing. I mean, we talked about that on the last episode. It's still weird to me that they're just going to wait that long to bring him back. I just don't know how much of what they need to see they're going to get an opportunity to see with such a small sample size.
Yeah, that's what's the I probably should know this, but I don't off the top of my head right now. What is Justice like? What's his contract looking like? Do they control his contract for next season?
Yeah, they have a team option for next year. And I'm pretty sure they're going to pick that up. I mean, this has been such a long process. I don't think they're going to give up on it that quick. I think they'll at least pick up his option to kind of see where this goes. Because even though he hasn't shot the ball well, he's a little bit better of a shooter than we've seen so far. I mean, he had one season, I think, where he shot 36% from 3. So, I mean, he's been a decent 3-point shooter. He's never going to be a guy that's just going to go out there and tee off from behind the line, but he's been a capable 3-point shooter in his time. I mean, he's been really off. I mean, you see these side of the backboard shots and stuff. He's a little bit better than that. I still think he's working through, and he's even talked about it offensively. He said he's nowhere near where he wants to be. Defensively, he's been pretty good, and you got a lot of Grizzlies fans already giving up on him. I think they're not giving him enough credit for what he does on the defensive end. They just look at these threes that he's taking and seem to miss it. I wish he just stopped taking them right now and just go to the basket, because we've seen him just get the basketball off the rim on the other side, go coast to coast. I mean, he's not scared. He'll go 1-on-3 and he finishes these layups. He's really good at slashing and taking the ball to the basket. So I think he just needs to concentrate on that in defense and work on his shooting and get better in the offseason.
Yeah, and you like I'm not going to slander him by any stretch. You know, there's a lot of rust there. There's stuff. So, you know, the defense is something that's going to be there. He's been
Yeah.
a good defender his entire career. That's going to be there. The shot making and, you know, all of that stuff comes as you get the reps back in. And you know, you go such a long time, like a long stretch of even when he was healthy, he wasn't healthy for a long, you know, for a couple years here.
Yeah.
He hasn't been healthy for a long period enough to really get into stride. So, you know, hopefully, like you say, what he's got going on now is something that is minor, that doesn't linger for him. And then he's healthy going into next season, because I'm not going to really dig into, you know, the offensive numbers that he's putting up. You know, I want to see production, but it's not going to be the end all be all for me because of the amount of rust. You know, if we get, you know, he plays out the rest of this season and say he gets into, what are we're at like 46 games. So say he gets into 20 games the rest of this season, 2025, and we're 25 games into next season and he's still slinging stuff up off the side of the backboard, then at that point, maybe you take a longer look at it and really, you know, maybe it's okay to let him go. But right now, like, let him get healthy and let's, you know, get his legs back under him before you start just tearing this guy apart. And I think that we live in a world where everything is instant.
It's that
And
gratification.
so,
Yeah, that's what people want.
man,
Yeah.
you know, that's what we expect. Yeah, he is a professional, but, you know, he's playing against the best of the best. He could go out to the park and destroy
Yeah.
every single person out there, and it wouldn't even be close, make them look like fools. But when you're playing against the best of the best, it takes some time to get that stuff back under you. So that's, you know, that's one thing. Whenever, before I really started digging into the game and getting more involved in it, I was a box score watcher, man. And I'm like, man, this dude scored 4 points and he was 1 for, you know, 14 from the field. And I'm thinking that, you know, just based off of that he's trash.
He's trash. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not watching the game. I'm just watching the box scores. And so, you know, when you really start watching the game and digging in it and watching what these guys are doing, you can see the value that Justice is bringing to the team. And I saw a graphic last week sometime of when Justice was on the floor. Since he's been back, the Grizzlies defense was like 3rd in the league.
Yeah.
With him on the floor.
Lineups, yeah.
And so there's definitely more to this game than just points, rebounds, assists. And you can see what he brings to the game. You can see his impact on the game if you're actually watching the game. And obviously you work, live stuff happens. You can't watch every game. But I for one, am definitely not giving up on him at this point. And I hope, you see it more than I do. Apparently, I've not seen many people giving up on him, but I hope I don't see it, because I'm going to tell them about it. I'm not going to be shy about it at all. I'm like, that's what all these people that are, scapegoating Dylan and all this, like, I'm not scared to fire back, because it's like, let a guy develop, let him develop, and, let's see where we're at. And I think for Dylan Brooks, it's working out really well.
Yeah, I was one of a big proponent of him getting healthy and coming back, and talking about how much of a positive he's going to be for this team. So people have been, when him struggling, missing shots, people are kind of letting me have it. Tell me he's trash. I told you this guy couldn't shoot. I told you he wasn't any good. And this guy's been off forever. And then even before then, like you said, he's had injuries in the past where he's missed a lot of time. Getting up and down in an NBA game is completely different. I don't care how much training you do off the court. It's nothing like going up against the best athletes in the world out on the floor, going up and down. And that takes a lot. Even if you feel like you're in shape, being in that type of shape is different. Once you get out there and the lights come on, it's completely different than running up and down in practice or your own on the side or whatever. It's not the same thing. And again, for a guy that wasn't a great shooter anyway, to kind of be working through some things, you're going to see some things like that. But again, the defense has been there, and I think he's even going to get better there. And I think he's going to be fine. And I think a lot of the issues that we've talked about, I think if Jaren Jackson Jr. was playing and healthy, I think a lot of these things wouldn't be as glaring as they are now. I think he fixes a lot of things for this thing. I think even some of Ja's struggles that we've seen this year, I think are due to not having another guy out there that that takes up that kind of attention. I think you have Jared out there. I think that opens up the lane for Ja. I think that opens up a lot of things because he's a guy at the power forward, center, wherever you play him, position where you really have to honor him stepping out and shooting threes, and that pulls guys away from the basket, opens up lanes. So they miss him tremendously. The length that he brings. I mean, they really do miss him this year. I think they're a completely different team with him, and I think he fixes a lot of these issues. That's why it's so tough to see him miss this much time, man. Going into the season, I had no idea we'd be sitting here in March not having him, and they're talking about not having him for most of April either. Just tough to see. I think it's just a year of development for him alongside Ja that we've lost. And again, I don't know. I feel like he's healthy enough to play. I think they're just being very cautious. And again, it's weird how they've handled this. I mean, I guess they have their reasons, but again, I think he could be back before April. I think he could have be back now, and I think he's healthy enough to play. Whether that's, I guess maybe they want a guy to be 150%. I don't know what their deal is, but it's tough to see.
Yeah. Yep. And it's, as much as I like Dylan Brooks, he is not a guy that is on the level of Jaren Jackson Jr. When you have Ja and Jaren on the floor, the Grizzlies have two guys that are more than capable of dropping 30 points, and the other teams have to respect that. You may get 30 out of JV here and there when he's hitting from the field. You may get that from him because he's going to be on the boards. He's going to be working. But Jaren and Ja do it a completely different way.
Yeah.
And JV is not a threat. JV is not going to be a 30-point-a-night guy. He just, it's not there. It's not in his bag. But Jaren and Ja have that, and that's a big hole. That's a huge hole that that this roster is missing right now, and we may see this offense grow leaps and bounds when you get Jaren back, just based off of what he can bring to the table. So that's whatever amount of games, 12, 15, whatever he gets in at the end of this season, I'm going to be excited to watch those to see how everything meshes and where we're going to be at rotation wise, who's going to be in there, which pieces work great together and which don't. It's if nothing else, I'm going to be excited for that. I wish I agree with you that I think that he's ready to go right now. I wish that we would see him before the end of April, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think even as much as we've talked about Jared, I think it's even been understated. I think possibly his effect on his team. I think we've gotten so enamored in them being competitive that we forgot how big of a part of this offense that he is and how different things would be if he was out there on the floor. Because, this team has won a lot of games, and we've just kind of taken, they're a pretty solid team. But, I think he just takes it to another level. If they're doing this without him, imagine what they'd be doing if he was on the floor.
Yeah, you look back to last year, what he brought to the table. He was 17 points a game, 4 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, and still a game, basically. That is, and I've got his 3-point percentage here, but he was just under 40% from 3. You add rim protection, you add another guy that can, his handles are really good for a 7-footer.
For a 7-footer,
he can create his own shot. He can shoot the 3. The knock, some people will get mad that he doesn't rebound. He's a 7-footer that doesn't rebound, but that doesn't, I don't care about that. If he gets 2 rebounds a game and you've got a guy like JV that's vacuuming up 12, 13, 14 a game, you're fine. If you get Kyle Anderson out there rebounding, grabbing 6 or 7, or Brandon Clark or Xavier Tillman, whoever it is, you don't, just because he's 7 foot, he doesn't have to rebound to be effective.
No, everything else everything else that he brings to the table to me negate that. You have capable of rebounds. You have one of the best in the league in JV. So that's not a problem. All the other things that the fact that he opens up the lane for Ja and stuff is, I think, a lot more important than his amount of rebounds. I think a lot of people harp on that. He's never going to be a big rebounder. I think, if he could get it up to, you'd like to see him get it up to maybe 5, 6, maybe even 7 a game. But I mean, that's not a big issue for me, and I think that'll come with time. But again, he brings so much more to the table than that, and you have other guys like you said that can grab boards. So I'm not worried about that at all. If he could knock down threes, and do the other things that he does, and rim protect and other things that other guys can't do, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. You're building a team. You know that even though he's a 7-footer, he's not a great rebounder. You go out and you get a good rebounder. That's it. That's what you do. You go out and you find a guy that doesn't need to score, doesn't, like Jacob Hurtle or Jakob Hurtle.
Yeah.
He's not going to score a whole
every
lot.
time.
Like you go and you find a guy. You don't have to have an all-star center down there. You just need somebody that can protect the rim and get rebounds, man. And you draft, trade, sign, whatever you have to do. You can find a guy that is going to be a good rebounder. Maybe not great, maybe not in the caliber that JV is, but I think that you can find, and they may already have that guy on the roster, and Xavier Tillman, Jonte Porter. We've not seen him play. He was doing well for the hustle in the G League bubble. That's a guy that is still on this roster. I don't know that we will actually see him in any type of real NBA action, but they may. It's quite possible that they've got the piece on this roster that they can plug in there that's going to be fine rebounding next to Jaren, and we can just let that be one of Jaren's deficiencies.
Yeah, and I think there's a scenario where we could look a couple of years down the line and Jackson Tillman is your front court pairing. I think I'm a big believer in Xavier Tillman. I think I saw some things in him. I think his defense and his footwork for a rookie are extremely advanced. I don't think you usually see some of the things that you saw from him early in the season from a rookie. And that's why it's kind of weird for me. I know the numbers. They're just, you're not going to play 11 guys, and it's hard to find a way to get him in here. But I just kind of hate that his development has kind of been stunted by him being out of the rotation, because I think he earned a spot in this rotation early in the season. It's tough to kind of see him out of it, because I think long term he could be your guy, and I'd just like to see him getting those minutes to continue developing. So we'll see what happens. But I guess right now, numbers wise, I mean, he got to play a bit tonight because of the injuries, but he's been out of rotation normally. So hopefully going into next year, maybe the roster will be a little bit different. He'll get to get some more minutes, because I think he's a guy that they really need to continue to develop, because I can see him being your starting five one day. I think he's that type of thing, especially when you have a guy with Jared at power forward that can score the way he can. You don't need a guy that's going to put up big numbers. You just need a guy that's going to do some dirty work, get some rebounds, and he's shown capable of that guy. He can even step out every now and then and knock down a three. So I think he would fit really nice next to Jared.
Yep, I agree. That's I've been pretty high on him since they drafted him, and he's done nothing to drive me away from that at this point. And development is going to be key for him. I think that the 6'8" size, the way that they're going positionless, the other night against the Rockets, we had Dylan Brooks playing the 4. It's the size. You don't have to be 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot to play the 5 anymore in this league. There are guys that, that size is going to help. It's going to make a difference against Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic. It's going to make a difference against those guys. But you don't have to have that night in, night out basis. If you've got a decent backup center that is big, that you can run out against some of the bigger, more physical bigs in the league, you'll be fine. And as Tillman puts on more muscle, as his body, he's probably not gonna develop a ton more from here. Like, he's gonna put on muscle, but he's not gonna grow at this point in his life. So as he continues to develop, I think that he'll be fine. He's already strong. He's already an oak down there. And so, as he packs on the muscle and he gets used to the these big physical bigs in this league, I think that he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they find a way to I'm not optimistic, but I'm hoping they find a way to get a summer league in. I know the draft is late July now, so I mean, I don't know what's going to happen there, but I'd love to see that, to get these guys some opportunity to get some playing time out there, especially whoever they draft. I mean, I really missed that last year, not having the summer league, because that's one of my favorite events of the year. I love to see these young guys get out there and get the opportunity to show. That would be very good for these young guys at the Grizzlies, for Bain, for for Tillman to get out there and get some extra time. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, I would love to when they get that fired back up and running. I would love to make the trip out there.
I've always wanted to go.
That, man, I think that would be incredible. Well, man, we are knocking on the door of an hour here. We can go ahead and wrap it up. We will be back. The next game is at home for them against the Timberwolves. Hoping, fingers crossed, that the Grizzlies come out ready to go in that one. Should be a victory. Nothing in this league is guaranteed, but they're at home. They're going to be rested. Hopefully we'll get Grayson. BC was out tonight for personal reasons. So, it doesn't look like that is we don't know. We don't have any details on that, but doesn't look like that's an injury. So maybe he's back on Friday. We'll see. We may have Justice, BC, and Winslow. Justice is Winslow. Justice, BC, and Grayson all back on Friday. We'll get out of here. You can get the show on Twitter. We are at HoopBallGrizz. I'm at DWill2111. Isaac is Isaac_Rivals. And thanks again, Isaac, and welcome to the Hoopball team. We're super glad to have you, man, and look forward to what the future holds.
Definitely, man. Excited to be a part of it. Again, man, I've enjoyed filling in, man. Glad to be aboard officially, man. And again, it's full speed ahead, man. We're going to have some fun with it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Until next time, go Grizz.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.